And we are going to finish this slipper chair, or I guess you could either call it a slipper chair or a Parsons style chair, which, are you not? Okay, I'm going to just wait a couple minutes because, yeah, am I live? Okay. Hi, y'all. Is anybody here? If you're here in the chat, just put a hi and let me know if you were here last week to see the beginning of this slipcover. A couple people asked me to please not finish it during the week, but to finish it on this live this week, so I did. I completely ignored this chair. I didn't even put the fabric was just a pile on my table. I did not even move this off the chair. It's just been sitting here like this all week long. The only thing I did do is I continued the welt around the seat of the chair. That's where we left off last week. So I'll pick up there and show you a couple things as far as the welt goes, and then we'll take this to the sewing machine and I'll sew it with you. So last week we cut out these pieces. I pinned the welt on these pieces, and then we pinned this piece here, this placket piece, to the body of the slipcover. And then we put the welt around the base of this because if you remember, there's going to be a cushion here, and the cushion's going to be a double box cushion sitting here. So let me bring in a little bit closer and I'll show you a couple things on this welt piece. Let's see if I can get you in a little closer. Okay. I wish I should probably plug in my light. It's really a very dreary, rainy looking day here, so there's not much light on this area. Let me see if I turn this light on. No, it's not plugged in. Okay, we'll just go with it. All right, so we pinned the welt to the, this is going to be the top edge of this is the deck essentially. Or sometimes people say this is the platform. So we pinned the welt here, and then this is where the skirt will attach down to the floor. I'm not going to do like a boxing piece like this here. I find that this, to me, looks a little bit outdated. I think that the skirt should come from the platform or the box and go down. I just think that this part here looks a little bit outdated to have a, let me see if I can show you. Okay, thank you, Hannah. So this looks weird to me. I mean, it's not weird, that's just the way it always is, but I feel like when the skirt comes from like halfway down the chair, it looks squatty to me and outdated. I find that either a waterfall skirt from the Decker platform or whatever kind of skirt, a box pleated, I just feel like that looks more updated. Okay, so I've got the welt pinned all the way around. I wanted to show you something here, and that is, so we've got welt in this piece here all the way around and all the way around to this side, and you can see the welt poking out right here. What I'm going to show you is I'm going to open this up and cut out this piece of cording here so that when we sew the welt around this way, we don't sew over the cording. It just makes it easier to sew over this, so you're not sewing over that thick piece of cord that's inside of there. And it also just makes the slipcover fit better, and it's just better. Okay, so you can see this welt is coming across here, and this is the welt coming down like this. So I'm going to open this up. Just cut a few of these threads in here and it should open up pretty easily. All right, and I can feel that piece of welt right there. I'm going to scoot the fabric up a little bit, so I'm not going to cut all the way to that welt, but almost to it, and then scoot the fabric up, and I'm going to clip that piece of welt off right above where that welt is coming across. Then I can drag that back down and repin that. And now when I sew the welt onto the bottom of the cushion or the slip cover there, it's not going to have that thick piece of cording in there. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, now I'm going to slide that up so that it's right above. Let's see where I'm at here. There we go. Clip that off right above where the welt is. And you slide it so that this is still sewn shut. You don't want to cut it or pull the stitches out above where it's going to be sewn. Okay, so that's that. Now let me show you on the other side. So we've got the welt coming around and coming around the back. And what I did back here is with a ruler, I measured on the sides and around the front to see how high it is on the deck here. And I made sure to keep my welt at about the same or at the same height back here as it is all the way around. Now it is sagging just slightly right now because I don't have this back. Let me show you. So it is a little bit, kind of got a little bit of a smile right now because this back part is kind of hanging as well. So I took that into account and I held this up and then measured 16 inches and made sure that my welt back here is the same, because then I can put the curly Q pins back here to hold this in nice and tight when it's done, and this will be nice and straight and at the same height as the sides. Does that make sense? These are all really sort of maybe advanced things that you kind of just learn by doing slip covers over and over again. So I'm going to trim this off. And I need to trim these pieces on this side. Okay, so these are the two pieces that I'm going to join together, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Let me, I'm going to hold this up so that you can see this a little bit easier. And I'll even pin this up. Okay, so these are the two pieces of welt that I need to join together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim them down a little bit because they were just way too long. And then one side, I'm going to open it up. And if y'all have any questions, please go ahead and stop me. Put them in the chat and let me know if you have any questions about anything that I'm doing along the way here. All right, and I want it to join about right there, so I'm going to trim this one a little bit shorter. There we go. All right, and now what I'm going to do is put those together, and I'm going to open up this one that I snipped the stitches out of, and I'm going to clip this one right here where they meet. Can you see that? All right, so now this is just empty bias strip, and there's the piece of welt. So now I'm going to take this piece here, and basically this is going to overlap, and I'm going to bring that to that piece of welt where I cut. It's probably hard to see. I wonder if I need to bring this in closer. Then I'm going to take this piece here of empty bias fabric. I'm going to fold it over and basically insert it into that empty piece of welt, fold it over, and I'm going to hold it so that I can pin that to this piece here. Do I have a question?
No, do you want this?
Oh, yeah. Is it, I forgot about the microphone. Is it hard to hear?
I don't think so, but if it's gonna rain.
All right. Okay, I've got a microphone now. I hope that is better. Okay, so now I'm going to open this up and I'm going to cut that out right there. Thank you, Hannah. That's helpful. My daughter is helping me. She's watching the chat right now. And so if you have questions, put them in the chat and I will answer those. Who do I have on the live, Hannah?
Some people said hi.
Okay. Okay. Who is it? Hi, Evie, right? Hi, Evie. Thanks for being here. Amber. Which Amber? Amber Polk. Is this Amber Polk who has a YouTube channel that I love? Amber, what's your channel called? I forget. Actually, you just rebranded and renamed your channel, right? Is this the Amber? So I'm just pulling that fabric up so I can trim this. Trim that off. Pull that back down and repin it back in there. And that's something, I used to never trim off my welt cord like that, but it just makes it easier because then you're not having to sew over that lump of a welt cord under there. Okay, so that's that. Oh, hi, Amber. All right. Okay, so that's it. We've got the body all sewn together. And I'll take you to the sewing machine and we'll start sewing this up. And then the only thing left is to attach the skirt. Oh, I did want to talk about closures on this. So because this is a slipper chair and there's not arms on here, we don't need to have any sort of closure, no zipper, no Velcro, nothing like that, because this, you'll see here in just a second when I take this off, that this will just slip off of here. If you had arms on this, depending upon what type of an arm you've got or what style arm you have, if it's like an English rolled arm or like a track arm, something that's straight and is not like a big rolled arm, you can sometimes get away with not putting a closure on the back. But if you have a rolled arm, you definitely have to put a closure somewhere. Generally, it goes in the back corner, because you'll have to like fit your slip cover on that rolled arm piece and then put it on there and then zip it shut. It just won't work without a closure. So this is a super simple, really easy style to start with if you're thinking about sewing slip covers, or if you're already sewing slip covers. This a Parsons chair or slipper chair is super easy. So let me back you up and we'll take this off and take it over to the sewing machine. Let me just back it up so I can. Okay. Okay. All right. So this is essentially done, and we're just going to slip this up off of here carefully. Now, one more thing that is with a slipper chair or a Parsons chair, this has just a small curve to it here. If this was a bigger curve, we might have to put a closure in it here. But because it's a small curve, I was able to slip that off of there without having a closure. So, all right, now we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we'll sew this. So it's actually raining now. Okay, so I did, during the week, I did go ahead. That looks good, Hannah. Actually, I shouldn't say during the week. I just did it today. But I did go ahead and put a hem in the skirt, and I went ahead and gathered up the skirt, because gathering a skirt, it's a bit of a process. It takes a little time, and it's just kind of a boring process. And I'll just tell you how I did it. So the bottom, because this fabric is kind of a loose weave, what I would normally do for the hem, or what I do a lot of times, I should say, is I'll put a rolled hem in the bottom. But because this is kind of a loose weave and it's a heavier weight fabric, what I did is I just serged the edge, and then I did a single fold hem. And the reason for that is, if I had done a double hem, which is normally what I do, is you fold it one time and then fold it over again, which is what you would do on draperies and a lot of sewing, is you do a double hem so that you're enclosing the raw edge. But I didn't want to do that on this, because this is a gathered skirt. I wanted it to still have a nice bit of drape at the bottom edge. If I had put a double hem in there, it would stand real stiff, and it just wouldn't drape nicely when it's sewn onto the chair. So that's why I did that. And then as far as gathering the top part of it, all I did was install some upholstery weight thread. I installed this kind of green. This is a Tex 70 thread, which is a heavyweight upholstery thread. The upholstery thread that you can buy at the fabric store like Joann's or Hobby Lobby that says upholstery thread, I believe that's a Tex 40. So this is even thicker. And the way that I did it is I just sewed a straight stitch across the top, and then I grabbed a hold of the bottom. This is already, I think, secured. I grabbed a hold of the bottom thread and just pulled it along the bottom thread and gathered it up like that. And then I tied off the section. I did it in like 2-foot sections or so, and then I tied it off to hold that gather there. And that's the way I gathered this whole long piece. So typically something that's gathered, you would gather at 2 times fullness. So my chair base was, I measured 2 sides, and it was 40 inches, so 80 inches around. Yeah, so my chair, is that right? Yeah, 80 inches around. So 2 times that is what, 140, and I think I had 156 inches of straight fabric that I gathered up, so I've got a little bit more than 2 times fullness in this skirt, which is nice. It's nice to have a nice fabric gathered up, because it just gives a nice luxurious feeling having a lot of gathers in there, in my opinion. When it looks just tiny little bit of gather, it feels like it needed more. Okay, so sewing. I'm going to change from my regular foot to my zipper foot, or if you have a welt foot, that's even better. My welt foot is out of commission. It doesn't fit my machine. Okay, we're going to do a straight stitch. I'm going to bring this over to the side. All right, so sewing slip covers. The first thing that I do, so with a chair, it's pretty simple because it's just not that much fabric. But if you were sewing a sofa slipcover or like a big armchair slipcover, the amount of fabric that you're going to have here is so much. It's just such a big, bulky bit of fabric, and it's so many pins that what I like to do is I like to start on the areas where there's like a 3-way join. And I'll start like 3 inches in and just sew that join. Then I'll go to the other side and go 3 inches in and just sew that join. And I'll do all those areas like on a chair with arms, like the crook of the chair where the back of the chair and the arm meets the deck. I'll sew that little intersection first, and I'll do all those areas like that first just to get those secured, because those are the areas that if your pins were to start coming out in those spots, you would be lost to try to figure out which way those fabrics go back together. So I always sew those first, because when you're moving your fabric around to sew it and you've got a lot of fabric, it's so heavy that pins do start to come out. So that's why I do that. On this is going to be quite simple because it's a small piece, not much fabric here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with this stitch line here, which is the stitch line that goes behind the top rolled part of the chair. And we're meeting the welt right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to take out, I've got a pin here that goes across that. I'm going to take that pin out. That way I can kind of pull this fabric away from the welt there, and I can sew right next to my pins. And I'm actually going to sew on the inside of my pins. I'm going to need this. I use my knitting needle to pull the head of my pins out of the way. And definitely back stitch. And I'm just going to sew right along the inside of my pins. And you'll notice I'm not taking the pins out as I go. Okay, and now we're coming up to this edge here where we've got a join. And I'm going to just pull this fabric away from the welt a little bit here. Take that pin out. Okay. All right, now I'll take all these pins out. I don't know if you can see now. Okay. All right, so that is that. Now I'm going to sew this side here. This is the, can you see that? All right, so this is one of the side arms, and now I've got welt here, and I'm going to sew from one end all the way around and down to the other side. And now I've got welt in this, so I have my zipper foot in there, and I'm going to sew right next to my welt. And the beauty of it is that you can feel the welt in there. I did not trim that. I didn't do a relief cut down there, so my welt is not cooperating. All right, so I'm going to drop my foot right next to the welt, move my needle all the way to the left side, back stitch, and I can just feel the welt right next to my fingers here. And I'm just making sure that I keep the welt pushed right up against my foot as I sew. And sometimes you have to adjust the fabric underneath to make sure you don't have some of the fabric over here tucked under there. I've done that many, many times on probably every single slipcover. And this comes in handy to just push the fabric down because I'm getting to the curve of this, and I'm going to need to put some relief cuts in here. But I'm going to just keep sewing until it feels like I'm not going to be able to flatten it out without doing a relief cut. And it feels like I'm to that point. So I'm going to... Oh, and look at that. I just did it. You see that? That fabric was kind of tucked up under there, and I sewed through a couple layers. So I've got to take these stitches out down to, let's see, I'm a good good 4 inches over that I stitched. Oh, it's so hard to see. It's so dark.
Do you need a light?
Okay. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Anna. Okay, now, see, I hope y'all saw how I did that. Okay, so let me go ahead and, so we've got the curved part here. I never put relief cuts in the top of this curve. I did a couple relief cuts here, but I did not put relief cuts here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put those in, and that will make a big difference. I'll be able to lay this fabric down flat and will not have to worry about sewing over. Okay, now that will lay out flat. Okay, see that? Okay. Let's do that again. I felt like I was too thick there. I leave my pins in and I kind of sew around them, but sometimes because they're these pearl head pins, they get stuck, so you have to take them out. And this one I've got sewn so close, I'll take it out. I forgot that I have this microphone on, and I don't have to talk so loud. I always forget and I end up yelling. Sorry. So when you're sewing slip covers, the sewing part is a bit of a slow process. You can't just zip through it, that's for sure. But I do find that home decor sewing is definitely, in my opinion, easier than fashion sewing clothes, because clothes are so small and finicky, where home decor sewing is just long runs of stitches. Okay, so take all these pins out. And let's see if I did that okay. Yep. Looks good. It's hard to see. Okay, now okay. Yep, looking good. All right, so let's do the other side real quick-ish. I would like to try to get this all sewn together other than the skirt so we can put it on and you can see how the body looks.
There's only 4 of
Any questions? Flat. Put another relief cut here going into this curve. Another one here. Another one here. The more relief cuts, the better. Your fabric will lay down nice and flat. And the reason why I don't take my pins out is because in case I were to run out of bobbin thread, or I had skipped stitches and I wasn't actually sewing and I thought I was, then like if I ran out of bobbin thread and I sewed like 10 or 12 inches or around this whole thing and didn't realize I was out of bobbin thread, I would be out of luck as far as trying to get it back together exactly right. And because I, this is for myself, so I could take it back over to the chair and just repin it. But if I was doing this for somebody else and it was like a sofa and I couldn't go back to their house, I would have to go back to their house. So that's why I don't take my pins out until I'm finished with a whole long bit, the whole side or whatever. This I have to be careful around here because we're curving back into that little, so I want to make sure I'm nice and flat here. And once you get, once you get some stitching in here, you can go back in and sew closer to your welt if you need to. And I can already tell that I'm going to need to do that in that one spot there, and I'll show you what I mean.
Someone wants to know, is carpet thread okay to use?
Carpet thread? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know that I've ever used carpet thread. I don't know if it says like Tex 70 or Tex 40, I would think so, but I'm not sure. I don't know about carpet thread. Okay, I'm going to take all these out, and then I'm going to flip this around so we can see. Ouch. And inevitable, I'm going to poke myself and bleed because I'm using white fabric. It's Murphy's Law. But that's why I keep Band-Aids right here. No, good. All right. So, okay. So here's the way that it looks, and this is the part here that I felt like and I can feel the welt in there. I didn't get quite close enough to the welt on that little curve right there. So I'll show you how that looks, and then now that I have this secured and I know that my pins are not going to fall out on me trying to maneuver it and wiggle it underneath the foot, I can go back in now confidently knowing that I'm not going to lose my okay, so I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so you see how that looks, and I did not get nice and tight into the welt, and you can see the stitching of my welt right here. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to sew nice and close to that. And one thing that would help is if I had a welt foot. It would help a lot. But let me go back in and stitch that close. Now I don't know if you can see that, but let's see. It's so hard to see. If it was not lit, you'd be able to see I've got a rose stitch there, and then I stitched in nice and close. All right. So now we're going to sew on the welt all the way around the bottom, and I'm going to start where my join is. And I'm going to start, I'm not going to sew together the join. I'm going to start on this side of the join so that just in case when I get around to the other side I need to adjust this join here, I can. And I'm sewing this on the right side of the fabric. There we go. So you see, I put a relief cut on this corner, but I did not put a relief cut on this corner. And that's very aggravating because I don't have the exact corner. So we will guesstimate. I'm going to drop my needle in and I'm going to lift my foot to turn that corner so that I have a nice square corner there. It would be helpful if I had a light on my machine. I need to replace the bulb.
Do you want
I have, no, it's fine. That is helpful, but I'm going to add a little bit more relief cut here so that this will lay down flatter. I have a pin on the bottom, I don't know why. Well, let's see.
Oh wait, that just got in the...
How's that? Okay, that's a little bit better. I'm going to drop my needle again, lift up my foot and rotate. So this part here is the side where I'm sewing over these two pieces of welt. So I just want to make sure that all of my fabric is nice and straight and flat and I'm not accidentally sewing any puckers or folds into it. Pins on the bottom here, I'll take those out. And this it's not so important to get this stitch line right close to the welt here because I still have to sew on the skirt. So the skirt is going to be another stitch line securing this welt on. And I put my pins on the bottom here, so a pin is getting stuck in my feed dog. It's always good to keep that in mind when you're pinning your slip covers, to keep your pins all on one side so you don't have to deal with this like I'm doing right now. Okay, and now we're coming back to the join here, and it's perfectly joined. I'm just going to pull that bottom tail out so that it's a nice tight join, and just hold that. Okay, so now let's take all these pins out and we'll see how this fits. And then I'll trim off all this excess fabric. Okay, this is where I put them on the bottom. The other thing about keeping all of your pins on the one side is that you won't accidentally leave a pin in your slipcover. You definitely don't want to do that. So, okay. All right, let's go back to the piece. Okay, there we go. All right, so we'll flip this baby around and there is a pin. Okay. Okay, and now I'll trim off the excess of all of this excess fabric on the inside and everything, and then probably overlock it or maybe serge it, because this is going to get washed a lot. You want it to be really washable. Okay. So that looks pretty good. It's a pretty good tight fit. This fits nicely and it's even across here. It looks like, does that look even? Yeah, looks like this is nice and even with that. So now I can put my skirt on here. Okay, and this is not, you know, I don't feel like this looks baggy or bad. It looks nice as far as being, you know, not too hangy back here. So if you want, you can use T-pins or the curly Q pins in there to make that look tighter, but I think it looks pretty good. I don't think it even needs it. So, yeah.
Fabulous.
So then the next part is to put the skirt on. I'll go ahead and just trim this up.
Looks great.
Thank you. And
Love it.
what time are we? We're at
4:16.
Okay, so you know what? Maybe we'll call it a day right there. Let me just show you real quick how I would do the skirt. I won't show you the whole process because just pinning on a ruffled skirt, it just takes a while. So, but I'll show you how I'll do it. Okay, so here it is. I'm gonna try to move it around gingerly because I don't want to break out any stitches and have the ruffle fall apart. Okay, so this is the right side because I seamed it together in a few spots so you can see that this is the right side. And I think what I'll do is I'll have it, you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to have it join in the front actually. So I'll put the join up here because this is going to be my daughter's vanity chair. So the back of the chair is going to be the most viewed part. So I'll put the join in the front and I'll put it at the front corner. That makes the most sense. Okay. Oh, it's so heavy. Let me get this up here so I'm not pulling out ruffle. All right, so this is the right side. We're going to pin it right side to right side. And what I'll end up doing here in this front corner is I'll end up just sewing these two pieces together so there won't be any opening. There won't be any like kick pleat. Hi. Joe, you could come through. It's fine. Okay, so I'm just pinning the raw edge to the raw edge, and this is the wrong side here, so clearly this is the right side, this is the right side. And let me pin across here, and then you'll see just, I mean, this is pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions about anything? I will tell you, in the corners, so when you're doing a gathered anything, a ruffled pillow, a gathered skirt, anything that has ruffles or gathers, when you get to the corner, you want to actually make sure that your corner is even a little bit more gathered than the rest. Because what happens here in the corner is if it's not really gathered and it's sort of flat here in the corner, I'm going to add a little bit more ruffles here and just kind of pushing the gathering into the corner there. If you don't have enough gathers in the corner, when you flip it over, this part of the fabric will cup. So this is kind of how it'll look. But if you don't have enough gathering in the corner, you'll get like a flat, and almost like a cupping action will happen here in the corner if you don't have enough gathers there. So just make sure your fabric doesn't get flat in the corners. So that's essentially all I'm going to do. I'm just going to continue to pin all the way around the chair and then take it to the sewing machine and sew it on. And it looks like it's going to be, let me see if you can see, it looks like it's going to be perfect length. It's a little bit long now, but that's because my fabric is going to be pulled up so that it's sewn right to the welt. So it looks like it's going to be just right once it's sewn on. So I cut that 18 inches and, no, I did cut that 18 inches. This is 16 inches, so I had 1 inch at the bottom for the hem and 1 inch at the top for the seam, the sewn seam. So that's how you do the ruffle on there. And then, like I said, when I get around to this side, I'll sew the two ends together, and that'll pretty much be it. I'll next week for my live, I'll have this done, and I'll show it to you in my daughter's room maybe. So you can see how it looks finished at her vanity, and yeah. So anyhow, that's the gist of the slipcover. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments on the video, and I'll answer them, whenever I can. So thank you for coming again today, you guys. Thanks so much. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next week.